it's Virginia Kilmore here. Oops, I jumped ahead. Today's Technique Tuesday, and we're going to make a beautiful Halloween card. I know it's a little early, but hey, you never can get ahead too quickly. So let's get started. So look at this spooky card. You see how it glows and is iridescent at the same time? Ooh, I love this card. My girlfriend Jan and I collaborated on this card for a swap. And so today I thought I'd show it to you. It's just such a fun card to do. Relatively easy, a little bit technique-y, but nothing really out of the ordinary. Supply-wise, you're going to need a regular 8.5 by 5.5 piece of Whisper White cardstock that you'll fold at 4 1/4. And then you're going to need a piece of basic black cardstock that's 4 1/4 by 5.5. You're also going to need a piece that's exactly the same size in Misty Moonlight because we're going to be ripping it and cutting it down a little bit. And then a scrap piece of pumpkin pie for a pumpkin. And we might as well go ahead and get that done first. I meant to get out something to put down as a background when we're doing all this painting and stamping, and I think I have something here, so I'm going to lay that right out so we don't have to worry about that. And the color inks I'm using today, there's quite a few. Cajun Craze to sort of darken our pumpkin, Night of Navy to create this misty effect. Doesn't that look like it should be white, but it's actually just using a darker ink on Misty Moonlight, and it creates that sort of hazy look to it. Whisper White to help us with the moon, and then Memento to do all our stamping in. So it's a pretty easy card as far as colors and stuff. We are using this beautiful new set called Life is Beautiful. I've seen such gorgeous cards made with it. I just love how these trees, though, remind me of that movie, The Wizard of Oz, and those creepy apple trees that she goes through. I'm also using this cute little saying, wishing you a happy Halloween, that comes from Festive Post, that coordinates with our new postage stamps punch. And this is one that came back from our old catalog. I love these little birds. I use them all the time. They look bat-like. So we'll get started right away. The Halloween, oh, I didn't pull out the one that I used to get the pumpkin from. So I guess there's one more stamp set that I didn't mention. This cute little pumpkin, I just love him. I think he looks creepy and scary all at the same time. So I am going to put him on a block, and you can find all of these new stamp sets in this new catalog, which I've been stamping now for almost a month. That's one of the great features about being a Stampin' Up! Demo, is we get to see stuff ahead of you, which means we get to play around with it almost a month ahead of everyone else, and I've been playing quite a bit. So I am using Memento ink, and I am going to hand cut out that pumpkin. And the trick is to get enough ink on there so that it's creepy and dark looking. And I have that really juicy. And I'm going to hold that down for a long time, hoping that that will creep right into the cardstock and really create a nice, scary Halloween effect. Ooh, that's great. That's stamped really well. And I'm going to take my little scissors, or little snips, and cut that out. Jan, who helps me with a lot of my swaps, is my neighbor. I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but Jan and I lived near each other for 30 years. Never even pretty much even said hello. One day I invited her over to stamp. And pretty much we've been inseparable since. We had one other friend that used to stamp with us named Marilyn, and sadly she passed away. I used to call us the Three Musketeers. Jan and I and Marilyn have been stamping probably for over, I think, 12 or 13 years at this point. But Marilyn passed away a few years ago. It was very sad suddenly, and so Jan and I still stamp together and think of her all the time. The other day, one of Marilyn's wonderful watercolor paintings was crooked, and I thought it was because she was mad she wasn't here stamping with us. Jan and I had a little chuckle about that. Now, what I'm doing right now is daubering the edges of my pumpkin with Cajun Craze. And I can also do it in a little bit of black, but I'm going to focus mostly first in the Cajun Craze and then see if I still feel I need to get darker. You see how I'm just intensifying the creep factor of this pumpkin. He was such a happy, jolly little pumpkin, and I'm turning him into a vicious looking little pumpkin. All through mood and color. Okay, I think he's ready to sort of sit around and dry while I do the rest of the card. Now, with this card, I want to have that moon showing and then trees on top of it. So what I'm going to do first is rip the paper cardstock, and I'm going to rip right along here sort of unevenly, and I'm only going to rip 3 sides because I want that base to sort of sit at the bottom. But the ripping creates part of that little creep factor, and it's great if you dauber it a little bit with Whisper White. So the moon is done with Whisper White, and then I also use some Night of Navy ink to create sort of the mistiness that's in here. It's kind of funny because you'd think I was using white, but I really did not use much of that. And to make the moon, I could just use a dauber and make it, but I also like to have a stencil of some kind. So what I did was take an old punch, a 3/4 inch circle punch that's retired, and punched out a hole. And now I'm going to take my craft ink, and craft ink is different than our regular ink because craft ink is actually a pigment ink. That means that it covers up a dark color. It won't cover it up totally, but it'll cover it up quite a bit. And I'm just going to run that around and keep going over it until it gets nice and white. And it may take a couple applications of the ink. And that looks pretty good. Now, I probably should take my hairdryer, not my hairdryer, my embossing gun to it. The reason being is that it's a little wet, and if I go to try to put some of the shimmer on it, I may actually blend it too much. So I'm going to just hit that for a second. I do want to soften the edges, but not so much that I lose the hard edge. I can always come back and put more on top. Now, what I'm using is what we call shimmer mist, or shimmer, I think it's called shimmer mist. It's our all-purpose frost white. It's in the catalog. It comes in a variety of colors. I happen to like this color. And before I go touching it to my cardstock, I'm going to just test it on the back. See how I already did some testing? I want to see how bright it is before I get into getting too harsh with it. And I've already sort of overdone it a little bit. But that's okay. I can always come back with my stencil and rework that one area. That doesn't look too bad to me. I think I'm going to just trail some up in here. But then I'm going to come back with my darker color. So the technique is how creepy can I get this week? And I am going to come back with my stencil and just try to brighten that up again. And that's much better. Okay, so I'm going to go one more time, hit it one more time with the air. And now I am going to come in with my Night of Navy dauber, and I want to really make sure that that's soft. I don't want lines, so I'm going to just very softly brush. It probably wouldn't hurt to have used the brush we used yesterday, but sometimes I just like a dauber, so that's what I'm working with today. And you see how that's darkening up areas. I am not going back into the ink right away. I'm going to hold off and really darken areas first, and it's creating that sort of misty, dark effect. And then I'm going to take some right along my edges, and then that would be the time to go back in and get some ink. I like it sort of dark along those edges. Really darken up down here because this is where we want the drama to be. It's interesting to me, I'm working over some of the shimmer areas and I'm getting, you know, a little bit of shimmer coming through, but that's okay because once I start stamping the trees, I will get some nice deep color. So we're going to start right off with this main branch here, and one of the reasons why I put the pumpkin there is because that main branch means that this part of the bottom of the tree is going to be in the picture. I think what I'll do first though is I'm going to do the sentiment, and so I need my Memento ink again. I'm going to open that up. I just inked that pad. See how this is stamping. Ooh, that's stamping really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and get that on there. I am leaving this on for a little bit longer than usual because there's so much ink that needs to be received to the paper. So if you just leave it on for a few extra seconds, you get a little bit better ink coverage. And because this is such a big stamp, I have to really make sure that I've got ink everywhere. So I just really look carefully. I think I am going to place that right over here. So that means it's going to come off a little bit. But remember, I'm going to have my pumpkin down there so it'll sort of cover up. And again, notice how I'm holding this down a lot longer than you're used to seeing. Okay, that did pretty good. I'll show you a trick too with some of these areas that don't quite cover up as well. I want a little bit of the trees in the moon, so I'm stamping down there. Now I'm going to stamp right in here. I'm going to stamp one more time right over this area. Ooh, that's really good creep factor, isn't it? All that's left now are our little flying birds or bats, depending on how you see them. Okay, and now I've really set the mood, and I'm ready to put my card together. I think I could still use a little bit more navy, or maybe I could use a little bit of the black. I think I'm going to just put a tiny bit of black. I have a little bit of it on a dauber, and I'm going to darken up some areas. Now, I'm going to show you a trick with this limb right here that isn't quite perfect, but first let's get the card put together. For those of you wanting to know what I used, I always have a list right here. My name's Virginia Kilmore, and I'd love to be your preferred demonstrator. That's something that you get to do now on our website. You can actually leave feedback about product, things you like or you don't like, and you get to choose who your preferred demo is. And I would love to be that person. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to that. Now you see all the little trials that I did behind there to sort of see what I liked and didn't like. And I am going to use some dimensionals to lift my pumpkin up. I think 2 would be appropriate. Probably should have done the tree before I put the pumpkin down, but I still can work around it. See how I just covered up that base and made it look the way I wanted it. I am going to darken up down in here a little bit. I think it could use a little darkening. And I am using the black, which means a little black's getting on my pumpkin. I probably should have done it before I put the pumpkin on. So I am using a pen, just like a Sharpie pen, any kind of pen that you have that's black, to darken up any areas that I felt really didn't get dark enough. And I can go back over areas that need just a little bit more definition that way. Maybe I feel those birds need a little bit of darkness. So just because your stamping isn't perfect doesn't mean you can't fix it a little bit. So that's my little tip for today. And there you have it. Beautiful Halloween card. Very dark and misty kind of effect. I love this iridescent stuff that's going on here. I don't know if you can see it. So wonderful. And that's all brought to you by this Frost White Shimmer paint that we sell. Don't forget, if you need something, you can use this code. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll be doing some fun stuff tomorrow. Have a great afternoon, and please get some stamping in if you can. See you tomorrow.